Imagine a scenario where biblical prophecies, written thousands of years ago, begin to unfold in real time before our eyes. The Catholic Church, for centuries considered the beating heart of Christianity, seems to be collapsing, plagued by scandals, controversial decisions, and leadership that divides the faithful. At the center of this storm is Pope Francis, a man who many believe is leading the Church towards a destiny prophesied in the Scriptures, the great apostasy that precedes the end times. In 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4, Paul warns us, "Let no one deceive you in any way, for that day will not come unless the apostasy comes first. And the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God." Are we witnessing this now? In this video, we will delve into the actions of Francis, the concept of the final conclave, and the fall of the Church. All of this in the light of the Bible, from Revelation to the words of Jesus and Paul. Prepare yourself for a revelation that could transform your view of the future of faith. The Catholic Church has a rich history, guiding millions of people since the time of Peter, whom Catholics consider as the first pope. But something has radically changed over the past few decades. Scandals of sexual abuse covered up by bishops, financial corruption in the Vatican, and an apparent relaxation of biblical teachings have shaken these foundations. When Jorge Mario Bergoglio became Pope Francis on March 13, 2013, following the unexpected resignation of Benedict XVI, many hoped for a return to orthodoxy. Instead, he brought a progressive approach that shocked conservatives. Francis advocated for the inclusion of remarried divorcees and promoted dialogue with other religions. And in December 2023, he authorized blessings for same-sex couples, a decision many consider contrary to Romans 1:26-27, where Paul condemns homosexual practices as shameful passions. Is this simply an adaptation to the modern world, or the beginning of the prophesied apostasy? If you want to discover how these events relate to the end times, subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell. We will explore the Scriptures and current events to reveal the truth behind the fall of the Church. Click on subscribe now and join me on this journey towards a prophetic understanding. What does the Bible say about the fall of a religious institution? In Revelation 17:1-6, John 1 describes a powerful vision. "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great prostitute who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed adultery. This woman called Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth, and adorned with precious stones, but drunk with the blood of the saints." For centuries, Protestant theologians like Luther and modern biblical scholars have identified the Catholic Church as this figure, citing its wealth, political influence, and more recently, its doctrinal deviations. In March 2025, the Vatican faces new accusations of money laundering. Meanwhile, Francis is planning an interfaith meeting in Assisi, scheduled for May, aiming for a global peace. This echoes Revelation 18:4. "Come out of her, my people, so that you do not partake in her sins and do not receive her plagues." Is the Church becoming the prophetic Babylon? Francis's reforms intensify the debate. In October 2024, the Synod on Synodality that he convened opened discussions on the ordination of women as deaconesses and greater inclusion of sexual minorities, provoking protests from conservative bishops. In January 2025, he reiterated his call for a church with open doors, but critics cite Matthew 7:13-14. "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction." These encyclicals, like the 2015 Laudato Si', updated with climate events in 2024, prioritize environmental issues at the expense of preaching the gospel. Galatians 1:8 is clear, "But even if we or an angel from heaven should preach a gospel other than the one we preach to you, let them be under God's curse." Is a watered-down gospel a sign of apostasy? The scandals do not cease either. In February 2025, leaked Vatican documents revealed that millions of euros in donations had been diverted to private funds, despite Francis's promises of transparency. The sexual abuse crisis, which erupted in 2002, saw new chapters in 2024, with allegations in Argentina, the Pope's homeland, and in Poland. 1 Timothy 4:1-3 warns, "The Spirit explicitly says that in later times some will abandon the faith, listening to deceitful spirits and doctrines of demons, speaking with hypocrisy." The church, which should be the salt of the earth, Matthew 5:13, loses its flavor and becomes an example of global hypocrisy. The final conclave is a hot topic. At 98 years old, in March 2025, Francis faces health issues, including rumors of an imminent surgery. Experts predict that the next conclave, possibly in 2026, will be decisive. In 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4, the apostasy precedes the man of lawlessness, who will sit in the temple of God proclaiming himself to be God. If the next pope adopts an even more liberal line or promotes a unified religion, it could fulfill this. Revelation 13:7-8, where the beast was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation, and all the inhabitants of the earth worshipped it. Is the church setting the stage for the Antichrist? Jesus gave us signs in Matthew 24:11-12. "And many false prophets will arise, and they will deceive many. And because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold." Pope Francis's popularity among secular leaders contrasts with the rejection by traditional Catholics, who accuse him of betraying the faith. In 2024, he received praise from figures like the UN Secretary General. For his climate activism, 2 Corinthians 6:14 asks, "What fellowship can light have with darkness?" His agenda seems aligned with the world and not with Christ. The global context reinforces this. In March 2025, wars in the Middle East intensify, with Israel in tension with Iran, while earthquakes and floods devastate Asia and Europe. Matthew 24:6-7 says, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, for nation will rise against nation, and there will be famines, plagues, and earthquakes in various places." The church, instead of calling for repentance, adapts to cultural demands, as seen in its positions on abortion and gender. It's not just a crisis, it's the fulfillment of prophecy. The trajectory of the Catholic Church under Pope Francis is not just a story of reforms and controversies, it's a mirror of prophecies that have awaited their fulfillment for centuries. As the world observes the signs described in Revelation, Matthew and the epistles of Paul come to life. In March 2025, Francis, aged 88, faces fragile health, and rumors of an imminent conclave are growing. But it would not be an ordinary conclave. Many believe it could be the last before apocalyptic events, such as the rise of the Antichrist and the final destruction of prophetic Babylon. In Revelation 18:2, John proclaims, "Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great. She has become a dwelling for demons and a haunt for every impure spirit." Are we witnessing this fall now? Let's analyze how. The recent actions of the Church, the role of Francis, and the future conclave are part of the divine plan. Francis has been a pope of rupture. In 2023, his decision to authorize blessings for same-sex couples, formalized in the document Fiducia Supplicans, sparked a wave of revolt among African and American bishops who considered it a betrayal of the principles of Leviticus 18:22. "You shall not lie with a man as with a woman." It is an abomination. In 2024, the Synod on Synodality progressed, with proposals for female ordination and a greater openness to gender issues, while Francis, in recent speeches, emphasized mercy over doctrine. In March 2025, he announced plans for an interfaith meeting in Assisi, with Muslim, Hindu, and even atheist leaders, seeking a universal fraternity. Does this reflect Revelation 13:11-12, where a second beast causes the earth and its inhabitants to worship the first beast? Would a unified religion be the next step? The financial scandals are also not stopping. In February 2025, an Italian investigation revealed that the Vatican Bank had diverted more than 20 million euros of donations into obscure investments, contradicting the promised reforms by Francis in 2020. This is reminiscent of Revelation 18:3. For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury. The church, which should be poor in spirit, accumulates material wealth, while its spiritual authority withers. In Matthew 6:24, Jesus warns, "No one can serve two masters. You cannot serve God and wealth." The choice of the church seems clear. The final conclave is the tipping point. With Francis's health declining, he cancelled events in March 2025 due to a respiratory infection. The cardinals are already preparing for the next pope. Among the unexpected candidates are Cardinal Pietro Parolin, who favors global diplomacy, and Cardinal Louis Stagel, known for his inclusive approach. If the next pope follows an even more progressive line, it could fulfill 2 Thessalonians 2:10. The one whose coming is in accordance with the work of Satan, with all power, signs, and false wonders, and with all the deception of unrighteousness. A charismatic leader who unites religions under a false would be the perfect precursor to the man of iniquity. Meanwhile, the world reflects the signs of the last days. In Matthew 24:7-8, Jesus says, "For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." In 2025, conflicts in the Middle East have intensified, with attacks between Israel and Iran, while Europe faces historic floods and Asia suffers from devastating typhoons. The Church, instead of calling for repentance, aligns itself with secular agendas. In January 2025, Francis praised the UN for its climate efforts, but 2 Timothy 4:3-4 warns, "For the time will come when they will not endure sound doctrine, but, having itching ears, they will heap up for themselves teachers according to their own desires." Is the truth being exchanged for applause? The Bible also points to an internal apostasy. In 1 John 2:19 we read, "They went out from us, but they were not of us. For if they had been of us, they would have continued with us." In 2024, traditionalist Catholic groups, such as the Society of St. Pius X, further broke away from the Vatican, accusing Francis of heresy. Conservative bishops like the American Joseph Strickland, who was removed by Francis in 2023, are calling for a return to orthodoxy. This reflects the separation of the wheat from the chaff, from Matthew 13:24-30, where false believers are exposed before the final harvest. The Church is dividing, and the conclave could seal this rupture. Another sign is the loss of spiritual influence. In March 2025, surveys show that church attendance in Europe has dropped by 30% since 2013, the beginning of Francis's pontificate. In the United States, parishes are closing due to a lack of congregants, while in Latin America, the Pope's birthplace, evangelicalism is on the rise. This fulfills Matthew 24:12. And, because of the increase of wickedness, the love of most will grow cold. The Church, which should be the light of the world, Matthew 5:14, is dimming, while secularism and relativism take its place. Francis, with his popularity among world leaders, seems more like a diplomat than a pastor. The prophecy of Malachi, a medieval text attributed to Saint Malachi, also fuels speculation. It lists 112 popes until the end, and Francis would be the last, called Petrus Romanus, who will shepherd his flock through many tribulations. Although not canonical, the coincidence is intriguing. If the next conclave elects a Peter the Roman or a pope facing the final collapse of the church, it could align with Revelation 18:8. Therefore, in one day, her plagues will come, death, mourning, and famine, and she will be consumed by fire. Is the destruction of Babylon near? Finally, consider the role of Satan. In Ephesians 6:12, Paul says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age." Is the church, by yielding to the world, giving in to these forces? In 2025, the advancement of artificial intelligence, global crises, and the erosion of faith suggest that the stage is set. Francis may not be the Antichrist, but his actions are setting the stage for what is to come. If this has touched you, don't miss what's next. Subscribe, leave a like, and share this video with those who need to hear the truth. Join us in the next episode where we will conclude this prophetic analysis. I keep you Point V.